haven't said hi to the person next to you, say hi. There might be someone. Prepare our hearts, oh God. Help us to receive. Break the hard and stony ground. Help our unbelief. Plant your word down deep in us. Cause it to bear fruit. Open up our ears to hear. Lead us in your truth. Show us Christ. Show us Christ. Oh God, reveal your glory through the preaching of your word, until every heart confesses Christ is Lord. Your word is living light upon our darkened eyes. Guards us through temptations, makes the simple wise. Your word is food for famished ones, freedom for the slave, riches for the needy soul. Speak to us today. Show us Christ. Show us Christ. Oh God, reveal your glory through the preaching of your word, until every heart confesses Christ is Lord. Where else can we go, Lord? Where else can we go? You have the words of eternal life. Where else can we go, Lord? Where else can we go? You have the words of eternal life. Where else can we go, Lord? Where else can we go? You have the words of eternal life. Where else can we go, Lord? Where else can we go? You have the words of eternal life. Show us Christ.
Hello, everyone. Today's text comes from Mark chapter 7, 24 through 30. Mark chapter 7, 24 through 30. As you're turning there, I want to draw your attention, or I want to think with you about a different story from the scriptures, and that is Jacob wrestling with the man. This is one of the most famous stories in all of the scriptures, and it comes from Genesis chapter 32. Jacob wrestles with the man. Jacob, his name is Heel Grabber. He's a runaway. He's on the road. He's got 2 wives, got 11 kids. He's living a crazy life. And when he's on the road, in the middle of the night, he meets a man, and that man wrestles him. And they wrestle all night. They wrestle all night. And Jacob grapples with him and wrestles with him. And he thinks he's going to get the upper hand. And this man, where it says man, touches Jacob's hip. And Jacob falls. And then dawn is breaking. And Jacob says, the man says, I'm going to go. It's dawn, it's morning, I'm leaving. Jacob clings to the man and says, I will not let you bless me. Clings and clings. I will not let you go unless you bless me. And the man turns to him and says, what's your name? What's your name, Heel Grabber? And he says, my name is Jacob. And he says, from henceforth, you shall be Israel. For you have wrestled with man and God and prevailed. And then Jacob calls that place Peniel because he saw God there. And that's the story. And in that drama, you begin to see, because of the blessing and what Jacob calls the place, that Jacob didn't wrestle with just a man, but he wrestled with the pre-incarnate Christ. He wrestled with God himself. And he clinged when he realized that this individual before him is the pre-incarnate Christ. He clinged to him and says, I'm not letting you go. I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. Unless you bless me. And you know the rest of the story of Israel, right? God's chosen people from that day forth, right? The 12 tribes become a nation, right? They become the place where God dwells with them in the tent of meetings. But in that little drama, there's something that captures all our minds of man and God entwined. Man and God wrestling with one another. Man and humanity wrestling. And there's something God reveals about himself in that little story. He likes that. He wants that. He wants you to cling to him. He wants you to grab onto him. He wants you to say, I'm not letting you go unless you bless me. Something about God's character that he enjoys that. That drama that you saw in Genesis 32, that same drama is going to be played out in this text. The exact same drama of clinging to God and not letting go unless God blesses you. You're going to see that exact same drama in this text. I'm going to spoil the lead, or I'm going to give you the 2 main points of the text that we're about to look at. And there's just 2 points. The first point, like from Romans, what Paul says, salvation, the gospel of God, is salvation to all who believe, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. So that's kind of the main point. That's why Mark writes the text, is to get you to understand that point. The gospel of God is for everyone, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek or to the Gentile, what most of you guys are. So that's good. The second point, which when I was reading and thinking through, really cut me and made me think of Jacob, is this. Great faith is always accompanied by great humility. I'm going to say it again. Great faith is always accompanied by great humility. All right, so I'm going to read the text. I'm going to pray. I'm going to read the text. I'm going to act out the text for you. I'm going to show you what the scene is, filling in some holes from Matthew chapter 15. But as I'm doing all those things, I want you to think of those 2 points. See if you see them in the text. Salvation is to anyone who believes, to the Jew first, but also to the Greek. And great faith is always accompanied by great humility. All right. Mark chapter 7, verse 24. And from there he rose and went away to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And he entered a house and did not want anyone to know, yet he could not be hidden. But immediately a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him and came and fell down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile, a Syrophoenician by birth, and she begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. And he said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." And he said to her, "For this statement, you may go your way. The demon has left your daughter." And she went home and found the child lying in bed and the demon gone. Okay. So, on Monday, when I read this, one of those texts where you're like, what? What? And the more I read it, the more I saw the beauty in the text. It's like, when Paul says, the word of God is sharper than a two-edged sword, that's really true of this text. The more we meditate and think about it, the more it's going to cut into our flesh. Okay, so what's going on here? So Jesus just had his encounter with the Pharisees. He called everything, all foods, clean. He goes to Tyre, one of the worst places in all the Bible. Jezebel is from Tyre, right? Baal worship was formed in Tyre, right? The Jews of that time called Tyre the greatest enemy they've ever had. He goes to that place. And a woman comes to him and says, "Hey, I have a daughter, child, who's got a demon. Cast him out, Lord." And we know from the Gospel of Matthew, he calls him Son of David. Cast him out. Cast him out, Messiah. We know from the Gospel of Matthew, he ignores her. Straight up ignores her. To the point, but that doesn't deter this woman. She starts yelling even louder. To the point, the disciples go up to Jesus and say, "Get rid of her. She's going to drive us nuts. Get rid of this woman." And then he says his famous line. When she asks one last time, he says, "Hey, I've come to the children of Israel. It's not good to take food from the children and give it to dogs." Who's a dog in that? Who is he referring to as dog? Her. Right? That's who. Then she doesn't blink. Doesn't even hesitate. Doesn't get offended. Doesn't go, whoa. She says, you're right. But dogs even eat. Right? You're right. But when food falls from the table, the dogs eat. Right? Like, sure, I am a dog, but you're still my master. So feed me. And Jesus says, go. Go. Your child is healed. She goes and finds the child here. What an incredible dialogue. What an incredible dialogue. So we'll look at that first point, and then we'll dive really deep into that second point. The first point is very straightforward. It comes from when Jesus says, it's not good to take, I've come to the children of Israel. It's not good to take the food from the children of Israel and give it to dogs. He's making the point, when you read it in the context of what's above, that the gospel is going to go out to the Jews first, but also to the Greeks, or also to the Gentiles. That's the point he's making. And you're saying, where do you get that in that? Where? I read that with you. I didn't see that. I get that from the above section when Jesus says, when Mark tells us in that dialogue with the Pharisees, Jesus declared all foods clean. That's where I get that from. When Jesus declares all foods clean, and you're still thinking, what? Just because I can eat bacon, the gospel goes out to the Gentiles? Like, just because I can have shrimp barbecue, the gospel is going out to the Gentiles? Yes. Because the law that comes from food is meant to distinguish the Jew from the Gentile. That's the purpose of that law. The purpose of the law of clean and unclean foods is Israelites will be different than the Gentiles. And now you're thinking, bro, where do you get that from? I get that from Acts chapter 9. When Peter has that great vision on the roof, and Jesus says to Peter, take up and eat. And Peter goes, no, I haven't eaten anything unclean my whole life. And he says, take up and eat. And he goes, no, I haven't eaten anything unclean my whole life. He says, take up and eat. And he finally eats. And the very next story is Peter going to Cornelius' house and saying, the gospel is for the Gentiles. And he says, you know how I know that, everyone? I had a vision about food. I saw food, clean, I can eat anything. Therefore, I know Cornelius, our boy Cornelius, can be part of the people of God now. Right? That's the whole point of this text. Jesus has prepared a meal for the Pharisees. Come, take the gospel. Come, drink of living water. It's free. But they're too proud. They're much too proud. I clean my hands every day. I keep the law. I don't need you, brother. Goes to the Phoenician woman. She immediately takes him. And that's the whole point. Mark even borrows the structure from Acts. He has the exact same structure. Food, Greek. Exact same thing happens. Food, dialogue, Greek. That's the whole point. It's the major point of the text is that the gospel goes out to the Jew first, but also to the Greek. She gets blessed. Now let's look at that second point of with great faith always comes great humility. With great faith always comes great humility. You have to, when you're reading the text, marvel at this woman's faith. You have to marvel at it. Play the scene in your mind. Think about all the time she goes up to Jesus. She goes up to the disciples. Every time she gets a no, basically. She never stops. That tells you something about her. It tells you she has absolutely no doubt. Absolutely no doubt that the person standing in front of her can do the thing she's asking. There's not a hint of doubt in her. Otherwise, why go through all this? Right? She has an incredible faith. Actually, at the end of Matthew, Jesus says, go, not because of what you've said, because of your great faith. Go, your child's forgiven. She has an incredible faith. No, insult. Still goes. That means she knows. Even calls him Lord in the Matthew one, even calls him Son of David. More faith than the Pharisees. Right? But that great faith is accompanied with incredible humility. And I get that from the insult that Jesus gives her. And says, hey, it's not good to take food for children and give it to dogs. She doesn't even blink. She doesn't even go, wait, what did you call me? Well, maybe. She goes, you're right. You're right. I am a dog. Think about that incredible humility. Would you be okay if Jesus called you dog? Would that be okay with you? Would you say basically, you're right? Incredible humility. To the point you have to ask, where? How? How does a person have this kind of humility? How can a person be this humble? I think it's safe to say, if you're anything like me, you would have been like, all right, bro, I'll see you later. When he did the dog thing, you would have been like, all right, see you later. Where does she get this humility from? How can someone be so humble? I think the only answer to that is that she understands God rightly and she understands man rightly or humanity rightly. The only answer is she knows and sees God, Christ correctly, and she understands herself. We're called grace. That's what the church is called. Grace of Prescott Valley, which means gift. God saves you based on a gift. And the reason God must save you based on a gift is because you're unable to save yourself. You can't do it yourself. And you're unable to do it yourself because you're a sinner. You have what the Reformers called total depravity. Every part of you, not that you're as bad as you can be, every part of you is sinful, including your will. you're completely sinful. She understands that rightly. She understands that she's a complete sinner. And she understands that God is holy, what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. She understands God and humanity correctly. So when Jesus comes and says, "You're a dog," she thinks, that's probably right on. I am completely sinful. But she understands Christ correctly too. But you'll still bless me, just like Jacob. Clings. I don't deserve it in any shape or form. I don't deserve it in any way. But you'll still do it. Bless me. Bless me. Right? You can't help, we've talked about this a lot in the Gospel of Mark. Mark always puts up two pictures and wants you to contrast it. Puts up two pictures and says, hey, contrast these two pictures. You can't help but look at this Greek woman from the land of Jezebel and compare her to the Pharisees. The Pharisees who say, I am clean. I am clean. I keep the law perfectly. I don't need you, Jesus. I don't need you. Keep walking. And this woman, completely humble. The only person who can help me is this person. I need you. You're right. You're right, I'm a dog. But you're still my master. Give me the food. When you think about it, that's an analogy. Some people say that Jesus is using, sidebar. Some people say Jesus is using ethnic slur for Gentile, meaning dog. That's not right. The ethnic slur is dog proper or wild dog. Here, he's using the term for house dog or pet. He's not using the same term. He's using a different term. He's saying, you're like the little pet. So he's not doing that. But going back to our main point, you see the great humility, right? It doesn't matter. You're still my master. When you read it all together, that analogy is actually being played out for you. If you read the whole chapter in a row, the analogy of I feed the kids first, and then the dogs eat when the kids don't, is actually being played out. He takes the meal to the Pharisees. Come, be blessed. But they're too proud. They're too proud to take it. So he takes it and gives it to this woman. And she's not too proud. So she gets blessed completely. I'm going to say something to you guys real quick. There are but two religions in the world. There is what we can call Phariseeism. It goes by a lot of names. Sometimes called Islam, sometimes called secularism, sometimes called Buddhism, sometimes called, but it's this exact same religion of Pharisees. I can do it. I can do it. I can climb up to God. I can be good enough where God loves me. I can do it. The exact same problem of the Tower of Babel. I can build up the tower. I can go up to God. And then there's the religion of the Christian. True religion. I can do nothing. I can do nothing on my own. I can do absolutely nothing. I am a sinner. God must save me. Christ must save me. That is my only hope. I can do nothing else. So, you think, oh yeah, I'm not Muslim or Buddhist or any of those things. But there are things that our world teaches. Things like, you got this, girl. You're awesome. You're a flower. You're special. Remember your kindergarten teacher? You're the most special person. Everyone's very, very special. You can do everything that you set your mind to. Love the grind if you're a guy. Love the grind. If you grind all day, you can do it. If you believe that, congratulations, you're a Pharisee. That's what the Pharisees believe. You have to be willing in the text to think like the woman. I can do nothing without Christ. I can do nothing without Christ. You have to think like Jacob. I'm going to cling. I'm going to hold on fast until you bless me. I got nowhere else to go. Right. Here's a question that when you read it, you have to ask it. And I'm not asking you as if I didn't ask myself. And some of you are thinking, hey, physician, heal yourself. He's like, yeah, definitely, right? When you're reading the text, play out that scene. He goes, Jesus ignores, the disciples go on her behalf, send her away at least. Jesus doesn't do anything. Jesus calls her dog. Then she says, yes, you're right. Play that scene out in your mind and ask yourself, when would you have stopped? At what point, if you were the woman, would you have said, I guess no is no? Right? At what point, if you're Jacob, would you say, well, I guess the angel wants to go. I think the man wants to go. Let him go. You have to see how this applies to you in your prayer life. You have to say, God wants to bless. God wants to be in a relationship. Christ wants to interact with me. I'm going to go to him over and over and over. And you can do exactly what the woman did. Trap him with his own words. Sure, I'm a dog. Dogs eat. Do the same thing. God, in your word, you've said, you turn no man away who comes to you. God, in your word, you said you work all things together for the good of those who believe. God, in your word, trap him. Take his own word and say, hey, you've told me this, chiefly in your time of confession. Chiefly in those moments when you realize being called a dog isn't far off. And say, yes, Jesus, but you are the God of grace, and you've always promised to forgive me. Right? This text was really It was like I was saying, on Monday, I read it, and I was like, whoa, what am I going to do with this thing? What is going on here? And the more I read it, the more I thought about it, the more I realized in my heart, bro, you're a Pharisee in some ways. I'm not saying you guys are. I'm saying when I look in the mirror, I try to earn things. I try to work. I take on all the overtime at work, right? I try to get my stuff published. I try to earn. Do. Here, Christ is saying, that's not the way. That's not the way to have favor with me. The way to have favor with me is to cling like Jacob. To not let go until you get blessed. All right, I'll invite the worship team back up and we can pray. Oh, I'm sorry, we're doing communion.
With Christ, remember his atoning sacrifice for us, to look forward to the day when we see him face to face. So this is something that's for all believers. So if you have confessed Christ, you're welcome to join us in this. And if you haven't, just watch as we partake. And right now I'll ask you all to stand up and go to the back, go around the sides into the back, and you can get the elements there and then return to your seats. And then after we sing a song, we'll partake together.
Your will be done, my God and Father, as in heaven, so on earth. My heart is drawn to self-exalting. Help me seek your kingdom first. As Jesus walked, so I shall walk, held by your same unchanging love. Be still my soul, let your voice and pray. Father, not my will, but yours be done. And he persisted. I may never fully know the fearful weight of true obedience. It was held by him alone. What wondrous faith to bear that cross, to bear my sin. What wondrous love, my hope was sure when there my Savior prayed. Father, not my will, but yours be done. When I am lost, when I am broken, in the night of fear and doubt, still I will trust in my good Father. Yes, to one great King I bow. As Jesus rose, so I shall rise in ransom glory at the throne. My heart restored with all your saints. invite you to stand and sing this last verse with us if you'd like to. And as we go forth, our God and Father, lead us daily.